welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode number 47. And the title of this episode is, Could We Be Wrong About the Economic Collapse? And the reason why I titled this episode with this type of title is because I was speaking to people today, and we started to talk about what was going on in the world, and, and it's just amazing to me that these people that I was speaking to had no clue what was going on. So I started to rattle off things off the top of my head of what has happened, what laws have been passed, what we're seeing, and they were completely shocked, and they kept asking me, "Are you sure what you're saying is right?" And I kept saying yes, because we have documentation and proof, and the news, some of the mainstream media outlets are even saying this, because they're like, we haven't heard any of this. And where did you, like I mentioned the NDAA, never heard of it, had no idea it existed. And I told them to go to pandaunite.org. They're fighting it, and it was just amazing to me how when you listen to the news, you do not hear anything. You only hear what they want you to hear. And most of the people are pretty much in the dark. They have no clue what's going on. All they hear is North Korea is scary, and Syria has chemical weapons, and we can't let these people destroy us. That's all they're hearing, while they're cheering for the Boston bombing people. But that's a whole nother story with that false flag. And so what I decided to do was, let's go through everything that has happened. The laws, financially, wars, the whole entire timeline, and let's add everything that's come out and that's new. And let's put it all together, and let's see, does this add up, or are we just crazy? So I'm going to work it a little differently today. I'm going to take everything that we have, and I'm going to insert the current news into what we have going through this timeline. So it's not going to be the current news, then I go into a report. So we're going to do everything all at once. And I just want to start off by saying the economists like Peter Schiff, Gerald Celente, Mark Farber, Jim Rogers, Paul Craig Roberts, Jim Sinclair, there's many others. Most of them predicted 2008. That something was wrong. Now, during that time, the government and Ben Bernanke, all the way up to the crash, were telling us everything was fine, it's a little slow down, it'll be picking up, there's no big problems. But behind the scenes, which no one really saw, was Bear Stearns. Lehman's was collapsing. AIG was having a problem. All these things behind the scenes. I mean, yes, we know it today, but think about it. In 2008 of May, what they already knew was happening. We didn't. I mean, we had some idea. We kind of said, what's going on here? And it's the same thing we're doing today. We don't have the proof yet, most of the proof. Some of the proof we do have. And all of these people before 2008, all going back to 2004, were telling us that we are heading for a credit housing bubble. Now, these same people are saying the same exact thing today. They're saying we're looking at a treasury bond bubble. We are looking at a stock market bubble. We are looking at a complete currency collapse. And what they're saying is that this collapse is going to be 100 times worse than what we saw in 2008. And for most people, I hate to say this, they didn't even realize anything happened because they kept their job, they still have their home, and the only thing they keep saying is, "Oh, I bought my home, let's say, I don't know, 300,000, and now today it's worth 175." But they're continually paying their mortgages because they still have their jobs, and maybe they're not getting raises or the same raises. So they were shaken, but they're okay. The rest of the people who got laid off, who had to take a job that was only 60% of what they were making before, those are the people who felt it. And those people who can't find a job and are still trying to make ends meet, those people are feeling it right now. And we have Albert Edwards that came out that says, stocks will crash, hyperinflation will come, and gold will go above 10,000. And you can see these economists, investors, investment gurus, they're all saying the same thing. And we have to listen to them because they were right before. Ben Bernanke was wrong. The government was wrong. They are always wrong. They always tell you the opposite. Just like in Europe, they told you that everything was fixed, everything was okay, and now we're hearing that Europe is having a problem, the EU is having a problem. Everything's fixed in Cyprus, but we know it's not. We know they still have capital controls. We know that they are still trying to make it work, and every time, the bill keeps getting higher and higher, and they're not releasing the people's monies. And we know that everything is not okay, but you don't hear that in the news, and everyone thinks it went away and everything's fine. So let's go down. What do we know about the government and what they've done? Well, we know that America was downgraded by Standard & Poor's, and other credit rating agencies. And we know for a fact the government was very angry with them doing this. And we have to think, when was the last time America was downgraded? Never. Until now. Now, what did the government do so they didn't have to worry about it again? They sued S&P, and they banned the other credit rating agencies from rating them. And the credit rating agencies that they control are allowed to rate them. And this is what they've done. Now, the UK was downgraded recently. So we can see there is a trend. We can see they are trying to kick the can down the street by suing, by banning, and having these credit agencies not rate them so people, don't become the wiser. So they're hiding that. What else have they done? Well, they are proposing an IRA cap where if you put up to a certain amount into your IRA, anything above that will be traded in for treasury bonds. That's what they would like to do. What else do we see that's happening? Well, the states are looking to make gold and silver legal tender. States also want their gold back. And one of the reasons why we saw the gold smackdown was to send a message, and there were other reasons, but this was one of them, to the states: don't ask for your gold back. Look what we can do. They also wanted to get out of their paper gold and paper silver and buy physical. And they made money, shorting everything. And they purchased gold, real physical assets. So you can see when they start doing this that we're getting closer and closer to this collapse. What else have they done? Well, we know the Fed has been doing quantitative easing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're buying about 90% or so of the Treasury bonds, about $45 billion in real estate. And now we hear that the Fed is involved in purchasing stocks and making the stock market go higher. So we can see that what they're telling us, and also they're doing the Fed is doing other things, and really the Fed's not part of the government, but I'm going to throw them into this. They are also giving money to banks. They are also giving money to banks overseas and to other central banks, which they don't have to tell us because, they're not part of the government. They're a separate corporation. But what else has happened around the world? Well, Germany wanted their gold back, and the Fed said, we'll give it back to you in 7 years. We saw Cyprus. They created the FDIC Bank of England document that allowed Cyprus to happen. That was their test. Now we see the same thing in Ireland happening. And we see countries changing their laws to the bail-in laws, like Switzerland, Canada, Australia. Basically, I guess the new term is Cyprus. So we can see all these countries are getting ready to Cyprus their people. And we can see everything is being set up for this. And they're getting ready. And the European nations will be bailed in. And this is all being set up. And they have to make sure that everything is in place so when this happens, it all happens. And what else do we know? Well, we knew Goldman Sachs before gold was smacked down. They came out with an announcement like, 1 or 2 days beforehand that they're bearish on gold. Yeah, I wonder how they knew that. And as soon as the smackdown was over, now they're bullish. It's amazing. It's unbelievable. How I don't know how they're. I like to have their crystal ball. I mean, come on. How did they know this? They were told. But we can see, even though they're doing all this, and everyone's like, oh, they can kick the can down the street forever. It's not a big deal, and they can just do this forever and ever. But look at this. One little tweet on Twitter was able to rattle the stock market. That's how you know how fragile this system is. Here in America, California is looking to pass a bill to take the pensions of the people to pay for their debt. New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Maryland, Florida are all looking at California to see how that works out. And if they're able to do it, the other states are going to follow. What else is the government doing? Well, they changed their calculation for inflation, unemployment, and GDP. This way, it fits better into their model, and they can, massage the numbers so it always looks good to the public. So they're none the wiser. It always looks great. But if you go onto shadowstats.com and you look at the way they used to do it, the numbers look very, very different before the change. And they're doing this right now because if they left it the way it was, people would be like, well, what do you mean unemployment is up to almost 25%? What are you saying? Because we're having reports from Spain and France right now that their unemployment rates are hitting levels of around 27%. They're very, very high. But what else have they done? And they've done a lot. And people don't realize this. Like all the laws that they've passed. They've passed the Patriot Act, which we know. They passed the NDAA, which allows them to arrest anyone that they think might be a terrorist or domestic terrorist and put him into prison. No with no rights whatsoever. So basically, they took away your rights. They created the Miranda exception rule, where in extreme cases you don't have any rights. They can just question you without an attorney or anything like that. Senators are permitted to basically do insider trading and not be affected. They passed the bill during the Boston bombing. Obama came out with Obamacare, requiring everyone to get health insurance or you're taxed. So basically, it's another tax. And what's even funnier is that there are congressmen who want an exception to Obamacare so they don't have to go along with it. But they're the ones who voted for it. And they don't want to go, they don't want to be included in it? That is absolutely unbelievable. So, what else has been going on? Well, the Senate also passed a bill during the Boston bombing that if Israel is attacked by Iran, the United States will join into the war. But let's go further. What else has been done? CISPA was amended in secret, and they took out all the privacy protection parts of CISPA. CISPA right now has passed the House, and it's pending in the Senate. But I know the president said he's going to veto CISPA if it gets to his desk. But let me ask you a question. Why did he set up the executive orders a month and a half before supporting CISPA? Just like he did with the 23 executive orders for the gun bill, because he's going to get these passed no matter what. And speaking about the gun bill, he's come out with, of course, new executive orders where it states that, the first set of executive orders for the gun bill is, a registry to track gun owners. The second executive orders have to do with military gun parts being sold to civilians. And right now, the gun bill is kind of frozen in the Senate, like they're just waiting for something, and I know I discussed this. We also have the UN Arms Treaty. We haven't heard much about that. Has it been shot down? Does it no longer exist? Is it waiting for something? And of course we have the FDIC Bank of England document which sets up the bail-in and depositors will lose their money. And now we have a new bill that has been introduced since the Boston bombing, and they found the black gunpowder being used in these pressure cookers, and there was a pipe bomb on a roof with black gunpowder. The bill is introduced to regulate black gunpowder and to put tags on it and to tag ammunition. And, basically all they want to do is get the guns. I know I say this over and over, but I'm going to continually say it because that's what they're doing. They just want the guns. They don't care about the kids and the killing in the schools, because basically they're setting this all up so it works in their favor. And since they can't get this gun legislation passed, they need something, which is another event, to bring this home. And meanwhile, while they're doing all this, they're trying to whittle away at the Constitution. I mean, we even have Mayor Bloomberg saying that we should get rid of the Constitution, we need to change it, for the times. So you could tell they're removing our rights. They want to get rid of the Constitution. They've already done it in some of the laws they've passed, like the Patriot Act, the NDAA, Obamacare, CISPA, the gun bill. I mean, and Bloomberg, who says he wants to get rid of the Constitution or change it, he's the one who passed this gun legislation in New York. That's pretty much almost the same one that they wanted to pass federally. And they also implemented tell on your neighbor if you think their gun is illegal and win $500 if it is. That's basically what it is. And it's basically spy on your neighbor and let us know and we'll investigate. And I hate to say it, this is the same tactic that they used back in Nazi Germany. And even the DHS is coming out saying, if you see something, say something. Yeah. They want Americans to tattle on Americans. But they make it, what they always do? They always spin it to make it seem like it's in the best interest of everyone. It's a good thing. I mean, we also have President Obama coming out with the executive order, the National Defense Resource Preparedness. Basically, this allows the president to take control of civil energy supplies, including oil and natural gas, control and restrict all civilian transportation, and it re-enables a draft in order to achieve both military and non-military demands, so he can enable a draft in a national emergency. So without Congress, he can declare a national emergency up to a year. And it could be because of an economic collapse. It could be because of a bombing in Boston. It could be because he believes the nation is under a chemical attack. It could be because he believes the nation's going to be under a nuclear attack. Any of these reasons, he can declare a national emergency, and basically he takes control over this. And he gives the control over to a board that will advise him. And part of the board is the National Security Council, Homeland Security, and the National Economic Council. And they will make recommendations to him and how they should proceed. So you can see they're setting this up where they're able to declare a national emergency. Remember, he doesn't need Congress for this. And I have links on here that will bring you to the executive order, and I also have links on here that from the Huffington Post, from Forbes, that explain what this executive order is. And what's funny, in this executive order, there is absolutely nothing, and this is from Forbes, and I read through and I can't find anything either. There's nothing in the executive order that upholds the Constitution or protects civil liberties. There's nothing in there that says, that's intact and we don't have to worry. It just tells you everything that he can do. And that's pretty much everything. So what else do we know that's been going on? Well, we know DHS has some type of cell phone mobile kill switch. We also know that they want to implement an internet kill switch, which I believe they already have it, but they're not going to tell anyone until they actually need it. Plus, they've already been going around the CISPA. They've been using CISPA already and using internet data, which is really against the law, against the Constitution. And DHS wants to turn on their Einstein deep packet inspection technology, that will protect us against cyber attacks, which will protect us. But really what it is is their system has the ability to read emails. That's really what it is. Now, what else have they been preparing for? Well, they've been preparing for a cyber attack, and they continually remind us of this, and I continually remind you guys of all this. And the cyber attack is coming soon because there was a new article that just came out telling us about this new malware, the Mutter, M-U-T-T-E-R malware, that can stay dormant in systems. And whenever it turns on, that's when it will wreak havoc. And they can tell that a lot of systems are infected with it because they see strange communications going back and forth. So they're getting everything in place already. This cyber attack, everything is being prepared, ready to go, and they're just letting you know that they will be doing this. Okay, now let's look at the wars. We have Iraq, we have Iran, which the Senate just signed the Senate Section 65 resolution that allows us to go to war if Iran attacks Israel. They're saying that Syria now has chemical weapons, and they just passed the red line that Obama laid out. And of course, Iran backs Syria, China, Russia back Iran, and Iran backs Syria, and China and Russia back Syria. So you could see where this is headed. And they're coming up saying that they have chemical weapons, and they need to get proof, and these are weapons of mass destruction. And they're going to have to really do better than this because we've already been down the path of weapons of mass destruction, and we've never found any weapons of mass destructions in Iraq whatsoever. And we still have North Korea, which is trading oil with Iran and bypassing the dollar. And we have England with the Falkland Islands, and we have China and Japan. And right now, Obama is arming Europe with nukes. So that's pretty scary. And you can see where this is headed. Because one little wrong move, we're going into war. Because, put it this way, if we go and he uses the War Power Act and he goes into Syria for 30 days because they have chemical weapons, Iran is backing Syria, Russia and China there. It's going to be a mess. But let's move forward. What else has been done here in America in regards to a police state? Well, they formed the DHS, as we know, and that's FEMA and TSA, and the Cyber Warriors are all part of that. DHS, they tell the American people that they're here to stop terrorists and that's their job, but they didn't do it in Boston. They had no clue. They have a terrorist reporting system, and that just doesn't work. It shows nothing. Because they're not interested in stopping terrorists because they're part of the terrorist plot. They're part of the false flags. We know they have a DHS mobile kill switch. We don't know if they have an internet kill switch, but I believe they do. They've been purchasing tons of ammunition. They've been purchasing weapons. They've been purchasing armored vehicles. They have fusion centers set up to spy on each one of us. And now they want to turn on Einstein, so it gives them the ability to read emails. They have the ability, without a warrant, to search through safety deposit boxes in banks. They don't need a warrant for that. They are now labeling groups, domestic groups called homegrown militants or domestic terrorists. They spied on the Occupy Wall Street and labeled them domestic terrorists. DHS, through executive orders, are working with state and local law enforcement. And right now they're being used in New York to confiscate guns, and they are working with other law enforcement, just like we saw in Boston, and it gives them the ability to have everything and use everything at a local level. They have drones in the air with gun identification technology, and drones can be armed in seconds if you really think about it. And today, Rand Paul came out and they are discussing, since the Boston bombing, maybe it is a good idea that drones can fire on Americans. Because if they're in combat, or they're an enemy combatant, or if something is if they're a threat to the American public, they can open fire. But I always thought we had due process in this country, and I thought you were innocent until proven guilty. I didn't know you can just assassinate someone because now you have drones. It's like the police going after someone who robbed a liquor store, and the guy's walking out, doesn't have a gun. Let's say he has a knife, and they just open fire and kill him. Or they see, an image on a video camera, and they think this might be the guy, and the drones just open fire on him. But it turns out it wasn't the guy. This is why our founding fathers put certain rules and regulations and rights into place, because they went through this already. They went through people going to trial without a trial and were just hung. And, come to find out later they were always innocent. This is why they did this, because the burden of proof is on the state. They have to prove you guilty. You're not guilty and then proven innocent. It's the other way around. You are innocent until they prove it. But that doesn't count now because, they have their rules with the exception to the Miranda, the NDAA. Even Canada, with that terrorist plot with the train, their bill was coming up for a vote. Their anti-terrorism bill was coming up to a vote, and they wanted that passed. So they concocted this whole terrorist train plot with Al-Qaeda so they can get that through. It's just funny how all these things just happen at the time when these bills and laws are ready to go. Or they have them ready to go right on their desk or in the Senate already. And it's just amazing how the false flag and the event just happens at that particular time. Now, let's move on here. So we can see so far, to me, and this is my personal opinion, why would you need all of this? What is the purpose of all of this? If we go back 60 years, when we had let's go back to World War I and World War II. We were in wars, and we had less laws, what are they doing? And to me, the only outcome is they're preparing for this collapse. Comment on this. What else do you see? We've seen events like 9/11, Sandy Hook, the Boston bombing, the Canada train terrorist that was foiled. We're seeing all these different false flags now appear to get different laws passed, to get people angry, to get people behind them, to get these laws passed. Recently in the news, we have the NYPD team with U.S. lab to study airborne weapons, and they want to see how chemical weapons could be dispersed through the air into the subway system. So yesterday I told you about the gunman in a nuclear plant, and we never heard anything about that, but that just raises so many different red flags to me. This NYPD team with U.S. lab to study airborne weapons in the subway system, chemical weapons, another red flag. And then let's put it together. Today, that was in the news today, and then again in the news today, the Boston bombing suspect indicated he intended to detonate explosives in Times Square. So he was ready to go down to New York and set off more bombs. We have the NYPD checking for chemical weapons. We have someone in a nuclear plant with a gun. Syria just not announced, Syria is using supposedly chemical weapons. That's the spin they're putting on this. So let's see. We have the NYPD testing for chemical weapons in the subway system. We have them telling us that New York City was the next target. We have someone in a nuclear plant with a gun. And Syria is using chemical weapons. Where are they going with this? Does anyone see anything happening? The Boston bombing, that entire false flag event, is falling apart. I don't know if you went on to my episode number 46. I had a link on there, which brings you to a page of many photographs of people where there was no blood on the ground. A guy that originally had no legs, they were putting these fake legs on him with bones sticking out. But the guy's leg was resting on a lady's shoulder while he was doing this, and there was no blood gushing out of the legs. Let me ask you, if your legs get blown off and your bone is sticking out, do you think you'd be awake enough to sit in a wheelchair with your eyes open, everything looks good, and there's no blood dripping down your legs? Does it make sense? But then there's a picture of him, a picture that was previous to that, in a wheelchair with no legs. So something is not right. Something was staged. There's more and more evidence coming out, and I know it's hard to believe, and this was really meant to get the gun bill passed and to have certain groups vilified by the mainstream media, the government, the central bankers, because they know there is a rising populace of militia and people who support the Constitution on the rise, and they wanted to vilify and show the other American people that these people are dangerous and they will do anything and everything to get their way, even kill Americans. And these are the gun-loving people, so this is why we need to take away the guns. To me, I just want, and I'm sure all of you just want, to have a job, to support our families, to live in peace, to be left alone, to not be taxed, to not have all these laws put into place, to not be scared of all these people, to get rid of the central bankers so our country is not in debt. Maybe this is what we want. Why would we want to hurt other Americans? It makes no sense. It makes no sense that Americans would want to hurt innocent Americans. It makes no sense. Their story makes no sense. With today's internet and today's independent alternative media, whatever you want to call it, it is so easy to prove them wrong. So the only thing they can do is set up some type of distraction. This Boston bombing, and you could see their story keeps changing all over the place. That, it's just unbelievable. But they need some type of distraction because it's falling apart. They can't do this anymore. And this is why, all of a sudden, the next target is New York. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. The only sense it makes is they're setting something up. Something is going to happen to distract what happened in Boston. When the story was falling apart in Boston, we had a Texas fertilizer plant blow up. Now, I put in Sentinel alerts that CBS, what was it, the I-Team or whatever it was, did an investigation. It was a local news station. Did an investigation that there was no ammonia nitrate. There were no hazardous materials in that particular fertilizer plant. And the train car had nothing to do with it. So it's still not explained. But what I see in videos is there is a flash of light coming from the left, and there is a noise, which sounds like a missile. For that one day when their story fell apart, they replaced the Boston bombing on CNN, Fox, USA Today, all the mainstream media for one, what was it, like 14, 18 hours. It was just Texas, all Texas. Once that was over, that was removed, and the next day you woke up, it was Boston bombing. They're getting close to finding the suspects. It was a distraction. We are going to see another distraction coming very soon. They are setting the stage. They are setting it up right now because what they did before didn't work. And this time it better be better, because it can't be as bad as what they just did, so they have to make it more horrific, more devastating, and with less people around looking. Because this was too populated, too many cameras. So they're going to have to do something. That's why the NYPD is also all of a sudden doing this chemical sweep of the subway system. Think about it. If a chemical was released into the subway system, and they want to see how it would disperse, what information do they get from that? The chemical's down there already. What are they going to do? Set up fans? They're going to have big vacuums come in and suck it out? No, they're in there testing to see, can we do this? Can we disperse this gas enough to have something happen? This is what they're doing. It's just funny that all of this Syria chemical weapon, NYPD chemical weapon test in the subway, a man with a gun in a nuclear plant. All of this doesn't fit. Something is happening. The Boston bombing saying their next target is New York City in Times Square. Something doesn't sit right. Mayor Bloomberg coming out saying we need to change the Constitution and because of what's happening with these terrorists. Now, let's put this all together. He says we have to change the Constitution because what's happening with these terrorists in New York. My next target, the Boston bomber says, was New York. NYPD is down in the subway system testing chemical weapons. Syria just crossed the red line with chemical weapons. There's a man in a nuclear plant with a gun. And there's probably other things going on that we just don't see. Something is happening. Something is going on. From everything that we talked about and from everything that's going on, we can see something is happening. But let's just read this letter from the retired Army officer, and he was a captain, Terry M., I'm going to pronounce his name, Hestelow, and he wrote a letter to his senator. It is with gravest concern that I write to you today concerning the recent appropriation of weapons by the Department of Homeland Security that can only be understood as a bold threat of war by that agency and the Obama administration against the citizens of the United States of America. To date, DHS has been unwilling to provide to you, the elected representatives of the people, justification for recent purchases of almost 3,000 mine-resistant, ambush-protected armored personnel carriers, 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition, and other weapon systems. When in fact the DHS has no war mission or war-making authority within the limits of the United States of America. Significant is the fact that at the same time, the Obama administration is arming his DHS for war within the limits of the United States against the people of the United States in accordance with his 2008 campaign speech, claiming we cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded as the United States military. That was back in 2008 when he said that. The Obama administration is deliberately defunding, overextending, and hollowing the Department of Defense, the only legitimate agency of the U.S. government with a war mission. This act of the Obama administration stands as a glaring threat of war against our nation's citizens. This act of the Obama administration can only be understood as a tyrannical threat against the Constitution of the United States of America. If left unresolved, the peace-loving citizens who have sworn to defend the United States Constitution against all enemies, both foreign and domestic, are left no option except to prepare to defend themselves and the U.S. Constitution against the administration's coup against the people and the foundations of liberty, fought and defended for the past 238 years. We have no choice if we honor our oaths. The only proper response to this threat against the American people is for the representatives of the people, the members of the U.S. House and Senate, to demand in clear terms that the administration cannot ignore that the Department of Homeland Security immediately surrender their newly appropriated weapons of war to the Department of Defense. Further, since the DHS assumed a position in the administration to enforce the tyrannical acts of this president against the people of the United States against the limits of the United States Constitution, it remains for the United States Congress to exercise its limiting power in the balancing of powers established by our founding fathers, to disestablish and dissolve the DHS as soon as possible. One needs only to look to the rise of Adolf Hitler and his associated DHS organizations, the SA and the SS, to see the outcome of allowing an agency of government this kind of control over the free citizens of a nation. The people of Germany could not have imagined until it was too late the danger of allowing a tyrant this kind of power. We must not be so naive as to think it will not happen to us as well if we remain passive toward this power grab by the Marxist Obama administration. Finally, for more than 2 centuries, the nation has lived in peace at home because of the protections of our legitimate military and the many appropriate state and federal law enforcement agencies supported by the constitutional courts. We stand today at a crossroad. We will allow this present administration to overthrow our United States Constitution and its legal processes to amend injustices, or will we honor our obligations to defend the Constitution against a domestic enemy? Our Constitution lays out the proper methods of resolving our differences, and it does not include its overthrow by a rogue agency of a Marxist leadership at home. You, sir, are our constitutionally elected agent to defend our Constitution at home. We are counting upon you. We remain aware, however, that this present threat, and will not expose ourselves as easy prey to the authors of the destruction of our nation. I know this letter demands much of you. We elected you because we, the citizens of the state of Texas, believe that you are up to the task in hand, and will, against all threats, honor your oath and office. We are also writing to your fellow members of the House and Senate to stand in integrity with the Constitution against this present threat by the Obama administration and its DHS. We refuse to surrender our Constitution to our nation. Captain Terry M. Hezbollah, United States Army, retired, Fort Worth, Texas. Listen, everyone. As you can see from everything that we saw today and everything, the list that I read, that we are definitely heading into an economic collapse. I mean, I don't see any other way, any reason for what is going on. Something is happening things are speeding up. So we all need to be prepared. Thank you, everyone. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thank you.